Hello, Matt here from United Reborn, and although the match against West Ham was a huge improvement, it was dynamic, it had a quicker tempo in the patterns of play, we was breaking the lines easier with passing and running with the ball and dribbling, and we was exciting again, which hasn't been said in a while. However, there is still one thing which is troubling me, and this is the shape when we are defending with the back three in the 3-4-3 when we are being counter-attacked. I'm going to go into it now and show you on the tactics board. As a point of reference, I'm going to use the actual match against West Ham in the friendly across over in the States, which we played. And look, I know this is just kind of a rough blueprint of what I'm seeing and what I expect to happen throughout the season and what happens when players aren't yet used to playing a 3-4-3 or a 3 at the back. And I'm going to wear my coach's hat on. Because I'm a licensed coach, so I just want to give a few technical points of what is expected, regardless if you're a Premier League manager or head coach, if you're a licensed coach or even a B licensed coach. The defensive principles throughout are the same. For example, when you are defending a counter-attack or in wide areas or defending when someone is attacking you, principle number one, the first thing you need to do is put pressure on the ball carrier. So, for example, here you can see West Ham in possession. You need pressure on that ball as soon as possible. That's defensive principle number one. Defensive principle number two is then delays. So you get someone out to pressure them, and either they can make the tackle, clean up, and then you're defended, or you delay because you need to get in better defensive positions, because transitions, so a counter-attack is basically going from a team what's defending into attacking. So you then, or let's say United at this point, was in possession of the ball. And now all of a sudden, they're defending out of possession. So your shape and structure is very important, and you need to get that shape back as soon as possible. So we've got pressure on the ball. Then you need that defender to delay or just stop them from getting forward. Then, if you haven't already defended a threat and cleared it or got possession of the ball, the third thing is you need to regroup and set out in a strong defensive shape. So they're the three basic things. There are more to add, but I'll just try and keep it simple. A lot of coaching jargon is really boring, so I'll just try and keep it easy for the viewer as well. And then three things is the minimum you need from like even a good amateur level, if you've got a good coach behind you, to semi-pro, to international, to national team, to the best teams in the world. They're the three principles. And not everyone does it. Not every professional coach coaches it. A lot of coaches don't want to coach shape. A lot of players don't want to be drilled with shape as well, because it can be very boring, but it's needed, especially when you're trying to improve this 3-4-3 formation, which I'm sorry to say, if you've watched my previous video on this channel where I went through all of the teams who had success with that formation in the past 2 seasons, there weren't many. Okay, so go back and watch that video. So here, it's a little bit shocking, and I'm not going to go too much into massive detail. And look, I know, we've got probably players here what won't be starting in the season. However, these are just the principles that we need, and it's shocking that we do see these errors. Now, like I said, it's not taking anything away from the performance. It was energetic, it was positive, but just look here. For one, Heaven's body shape, okay? And look at Ligt. Since when should we have two central, well, you can't say two central defenders, but two centre-backs out the three facing each other when you can clearly see a player running across you? So Heaven's let him run across. Now, when you look at the ball carrier, okay, somebody tell me where the pressure is. Where's the pressure coming from here for that defensive principle number one? There's no pressure. Now, what has happened here is the wide players, or the let's say the wing backs, are pushed up. So is it Ahmad here on the right hand side, Dorgu on the left hand side? They've obviously been attacking. Dorgu's still trying to get back here. Okay, recovery run, which is great. Ahmad has got back, but look at his body shape as well. Look at the whole body shape of the defense. Even here, you can see Ligt is almost looking over his shoulder. The only one who's actually got the full view of the ball player, who's not in a total awkward position, is Jarrod.
So Yora's got view. Okay, Heaven's like, right, I've got to get my body shape, but there's no pressure on the ball. Okay, central midfielders here. We've got I think that's Mainu, Ugarte, and Bruno trying to recover, but the line's already been broken. There's no defensive cover, which is totally different to what the Premier League winning team of Chelsea in 2016 and 2017 had when they had Matic and Kante. What would be sitting here? So we're going to be really susceptible to the counter attack. Okay. Now, this is actually the goal from Bowen. And I saw it straight away. We were counter-attacked and we were a mess at the back. Just watch what happens now, okay? So right here, it's an absolute defender's nightmare because although they're not overloaded, they're just not organized. So remember, when you're organized, if we're going to play a 3-4-3, this 3 should now be a 5. As you can see, it's kind of a 4, but a disjointed 4 with huge gap here between the left fullback and one of the centre backs here. Okay, it needs to be compact. This is why the weak areas are in behind the wing backs all the time, in behind the wing backs, and it's that detachment from the outside centre back to the wing back, which is always the danger. And as you can see here, even now, okay, where the pass has been made from the West Ham player into Bowen, okay, even now, just look at this for, let's say, a back four or a back five, okay? We've still got a recovery run here. So he's ball side, he's not even goal side. Dorgu isn't even goal side. Here, now, Ahmad is getting back, but we've got another danger out wide here. Is he aware of a player behind him? Is he shoulder checking? Look, I'll have to look through the game again. You would hope so. But now West Ham are on the forefront. Okay, they got players joining the attack. And as you can see here, look how much space Heaven has to make now before he can do defending principle number one, which is putting pressure on. Pressure should have already been put on, but it still hasn't been put on now. So look at how much space he's got. Now, Delit's doing kind of the right thing. He needs to cover Heaven. So Heavens needs to be across quicker, and then Delit needs to cover. So he's not in a bad position, I would say. And then you would hope, is that Yoro? I think you would hope that Yoro would be then covering Delit in the middle. But we don't get that far because, as we know, Bowen gets the ball. And look, we still haven't got pressure on. So just going back, where he's picking the ball up way outside the 18-yard box, going into the 18-yard box, and there's still not enough pressure on now the ball play, which is Bowen, who ends up scoring from here. And again, how is the rest of the back line now not in a position to start facing the ball, looking over the shoulders and facing the play? They're still recovering. Look at 1, 2, and 3. Even Delit is now not in a great position to cover because if Bowen does drop the shoulder and try and go around Heaven, Delit has to then make up ground. He's too far away. Everyone should be already in position or as good as possible. And this is not a solid and structured defensive line. And this is a problem recovering when we're being counter-attacked, which is going to be difficult to do against stronger teams. No disrespect to West Ham, the stronger, top 4, top 5 teams. Okay. And what happens from here goes on to score. Now, that isn't a one-off. Bowen then, at the end of the second half, gets another chance, okay? Similar position. So this is a total different situation. This is totally different. Again, now West Ham have almost got an overload. What have we got here, United? We've got players recovering. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm sorry, but 2-1. Shouldn't this be good practice now, even as a practice match, a friendly, to actually try and drill getting that back five in place with the midfield, then defending and making it solid, protecting the back five, okay? Just a bit of practice for when we are holding on to a 1-goal lead. But instead, we are now 3 versus 2 at the back. There's an overload in West Ham's favour. And again, look at all of the body positions and look what's happening here. I believe that's Bowen because Bowen nearly scores again from a similar position, but from the other side this time. So just look at the body shape of that. I mean, I think that's Maguire now. I'm sorry, but we're talking about an England international, Harry Maguire, look at his body shape. And these are just basics. And you're saying, oh, what, don't you think the professional coaches for United and bigger teams don't know what you're saying? Well, they do, but I really hope that this is being picked up and being shown to the players. And I'm sorry, but players at this level, at this standard, high standard, I've coached is China League One, the second tier in Chinese football, and a couple of top tiers in other leagues, nowhere near this level. And you can see most trained coaches in analysis can see that is terrible body shape. So basically, Maguire's trying to show him to the outside, but his body shape's even wrong for that. So he ends up coming across, the ball player comes across. There's no one, absolutely no one. It looks like the recovery run here is not even looking to get beyond the player. So what will happen here, when the ball's played, he will then have to turn the body. Maguire will then have to go and turn when the pressure is put on. But again, look how far we are away of putting pressure on. We are so far away from pressuring the ball player that there's no time to even delay, which is the second defensive principle. Look what happens here when we go into this. Too much space. Now he ends up having the shot too early, and it's a good save by the keeper. It isn't target. It's almost a goal from an identical position of the Bowen goal, of Bowen's first shot, what ended up in a goal. And look how much space now. I think that's Maguire. I forgot who's partnering Maguire there. Shaw is just off the pace. Yeah, Shaw's back here. Shaw's meant to be the left fullback. We are going to get found out if this isn't sorted out. And I just don't know why this is happening. And the only thing I think is they're still not comfortable. And you can say, oh yeah, but they're getting used to three at the back. I'm sorry, but they've had every match to try and get used to this last season. And now pre-season, they should be straight into it, working on this shape. And these games against Leeds, against West Ham, what have already happened, the Bournemouth one coming up, this shape needs to be worked on. I'm not talking about the attacking shape now with Cunha and Umbumo. I'm talking about the defensive shape, because this isn't defensive shape. And I know that we changed the team, the full team, but defenders and players of this caliber at this level should be able to slot in and know how to defend. And it's not about, oh, but we're a three in a back, we're in a four a back. It's basic attack, it's basic defensive principles, which should be coached. And players should really know, especially defender. If I'm a Premier League defender, I know what my principles are and I'm working on them. And if I don't, for some reason, the coaches should be telling me. This ends up almost a goal. The Turkish lad tips it over the bar, which is a great save. And it's just poor defending again. It's poor shape again. So going on to the tactics board now. Look, I've just used the first half setup here. Look, and people think, look, that's for formation. But as I mentioned in other videos, coaches like to use the word shape because formations are just players what start. It's a starting position of a player. But the shape changes throughout the game, whether you're defending, whether you're attacking, whether you're counter-pressing, whether you're pressing, whether you're holding possession, whether you're out of possession, you're in possession, in the attacking third, defensive third. Shape changes numerous times throughout the game. So everyone's perfect scenario who watches and sees a lineup and watches it on TV think, oh yeah, look, 3-4-3. I haven't got the three forwards or attackers because in reality, they wouldn't be in this position, in this picture, what I'm about to say. So everyone thinks, oh yeah, 3-4-3, look. Oh, easy, look. Why don't we just get the wing backs back in the back five, and then they're protected by the two. Yeah, in a perfect scenario. Now, this is what Chelsea 2016, 2017 got down. Exactly right, okay? However, this is not reality. Reality is we've just been attacking, okay? We've just been attacking. So everyone's pushed up. We've now lost the ball, and the midfield line or the defensive midfield line has been broken, whether it's a pass or a dribble. So now what we have here, I haven't put the opposition players in, I'm just going to use a ball position. So what we have here now is Ahmad, Dorgu, Ugarte, Mainu having to make recovery runs. Even Yoro, if Yoro was thinking, you know what, I can push up a little bit here, which he did throughout the first half. Now, of course, these might be different players in the starting lineup through the season, but these principles should be practiced in the friendlies, in the build up to the season, or we're going to be in trouble, okay? And the keeper should be, in a good position as well. But all of a sudden, counter attack, okay? So everyone's having to get back. Luke Shaw, in them last pictures, Luke Shaw was around here, recovering, doing a recovering run. Dorgu and Ahmad, great going forward. However, it's going to be a struggle to get them back secure because not any fault of theirs or the coaches. It's just difficult. It's difficult when they're attacking, when they're joining the attack to create overloads, to then get back and get that defensive 5 in place, or even a defensive 4. Now, what happens here? Now, this is why I personally prefer, look at me talking like a big coach, but I prefer just for one holding midfielder. So it's more like a, so you can still have a 3-4-3 or the 3-5-2, or look, again, it's just formation, different movement. We can still have a 3-4-3. However, I like one defensive midfielder, let's say Ugarte. I like one defensive midfielder and one more attacking midfielder who knows that, let's for example say Dorgu's come up and we've been counter-attacked. And then all what happens, it's in an ideal situation, okay, counter-attack. Heaven needs to be quicker to put pressure. Then we have cover. And then what we have are two options. We can have a defensive midfielder to slip in here to make the 4 at the back, or Yoro then moves forward and the defensive midfielder slips into a fullback position. And that would then make a normal back 4 situation, which you would be happy with. Because now, the fullback, what slipped in, the defensive midfielder, is covering the attacking wide player here. Delit's covering if Heaven gets beat. Yoro's covering Delit as a third man and is the go-between if the ball's switched. Because if that ball gets switched over here, Ugarte then turns into the pressure. Yoro then turns into the cover, and Delit is playing that in between in case the ball is switched. And this is how coaches practice shape. It is boring. You have attack versus defense, and you have an overload with players, attacking players, switching the play, and defenders and midfielders practicing shape. Okay, so they are basically the two options when you're playing the 3 at the back. Even me at my level, I've coached 3 at the back. I've coached 5 at the back. I've coached 4 at the back. I've coached 2 midfielders and 1 dropping in. I've coached the wide centre back acting as a fullback because they're more defensive minded than a midfield going to a fullback position. And the defensive midfielder who's defensive minded, let's say you've got Busquets who can play centre back, and they just slip in nicely and make that back 4. So you're not too disjointed. But what you saw, what I've just shown you, is an absolute mess. You had Heaven here, awkward position. You had a player out here. The first goal was like Bowen here, no pressure here. You had Yoro, which was here. You had an attempt to recover. So we did attempt. Everyone else was like this. So that line's already been broken. Now, as you can see, there was an attempt to get back into a back 4. However, everything was too slow. Look at the curve of this back 4. You got Ahmad still behind the ball. You got Yoro, which was in an awkward position, twisting his head, not knowing what's behind him. Okay, so if there was anyone here in this space behind Ahmad, which are the danger areas to defend, one switch and then we're in trouble again. Now, before Heaven even got close, Bowen was already in the penalty area here, and Heaven still wasn't putting proper pressure on. And then by that time, it was too late, and he basically had a free shot on goal, and it ended up going in. And that, ladies and gents, is my real worry for the upcoming season. Yes, it may be covered over, a little bit of a band-aid on it. I was going to say plaster, but I ended up going all American. A little bit of a band-aid on it because of our attacking prowess now, which is going to be exciting and dynamic. However, teams, you got to remember, even regardless of 15th place last season, lower perceived teams are still going to defend against United, and they are going to be looking to counterattack. So we're going to have to break teams down. Now that's the problem. We're not going to have teams attacking us from the off. The bigger teams, which we did okay against last season, right? The bigger teams will try and attack, okay? Maybe we will try and attack teams more because we've got better attacking force now. But the lower half of the table teams are still going to try and defend, soak up the pressure and counter us. And these positions behind them wing backs are always going to be susceptible. They're always going to be our weak points. And if we don't get this shape, it's not about getting the formation right. It's about getting the shape right. If we can't have our players with correct body position, if we can't get our defenders following basic defensive principles of pressure, delay, defend, or recover, we're going to get hammered when counterattacked. Apart from that, everything else was positive in the game. I love the speed, the tempo of the way we transitioned. I love how out of nowhere Cunha could carry the ball and break the lines, which we didn't really have last season. We've got more attacking options. The passing was slick. The passing tempo was quicker. The combination play was faster. You can't deny that. The little 2-3-4 combo passes in the midfield third. So the midfield third being a midfield area. Before then, a run with the ball or a dribble or a final deadly pass to break the defensive line. This is what we was missing last season. So this is positive, but it may cover up, as I said, our defensive frailties, which I'm afraid of. Let me know what you think in the comments. I want to know if you're a fan of 3-4-3 still, although we're not going to change it with our current manager. We just got to support it and go with it. And Amorim's not going to change that now. If you would prefer to see a different lineup, if you got anyone in mind who you think would be better in certain positions, I do like Jarrod because he has got that flexibility. I know Heaven may not feature and everything wasn't on him. Maguire making the same mistakes. But just let me know in your comments, from a United fan to another United fan. I'll be really interested to hear your point of view. Catch you on the sharp side.